The US-Canada border is more than a line. It's a symbol of peace and partnership. For generations, families, businesses, and tourists have crossed it with ease, forging a unique friendship between two nations. In towns like Derbyline, Vermont, and Stansted, Quebec, neighbors share libraries and fire departments, crossing the border as casually as visiting a friend. This daily interaction has built a culture of trust and cooperation, often taken for granted. Canada and the US are each other's largest trading partners, with billions in goods and services crossing daily, supporting millions of jobs. The economic interdependence is immense. From auto parts in Michigan and Ontario to lumber from British Columbia to Washington, this partnership has weathered trade disputes and political disagreements. But the foundation of trust has always endured. Leaders on both sides have prioritized the bigger picture over individual disputes. But in 2025, that trust faced an unprecedented. The challenge wasn't about a single trade good. It struck at the very heart of the US-Canada relationship. Suddenly, the world's longest undefended border felt less certain. The events that followed would shake the foundation off this historic partnership. What happened next would test whether decades-old goodwill could survive a new kind of crisis. The story begins with a road that changed everything. The Alaska Highway is more than a road. It's a lifeline through 1,400 meters of wilderness, built in 1942 by the US and Canada during World War II. Created for military defense, it became Alaska's vital link to the rest of the US, carrying groceries, supplies, and tourists. The highway is a symbol. Hut, the two countries can achieve vedager. For decades, its management was a quiet success story of cross-border cooperation. Canada owns the land, but both nations have always understood its critical importance. American trucks and travelers use the road with few barriers, fueling local economies along the way. This smooth operation was built and trust forged during the highway's construction. No one imagined this vital link could become a source of serious conflict. Yet in 2025, that trust would have put to the ultimate test. The Alaska Highway, once a bridge, was about to become a battleground. And it all started with a single In March 2025, British Columbia announced a steep new toll, Nellis. Registered commercial trucks using its section of the Alaska Highway. The fee was thousands of dollars per round trip with no warning or consultation. Truckers were blindsided at border crossings, some refusing to pay, others reluctantly complying. Prices in Alaska began to rise. Milk, plywood, car parts, anything arriving by truck cost more. Small towns along the highway felt the impact first. Delayed supplies, empty shelves, and struggling business. The toll disrupted a stable ecosystem, exposing Alaska's vulnerability. For Alaskans, it felt like a betrayal of the unwritten rules, US-Canada cooperation. Major policy changes were supposed to be discussed, not imposed unilaterally. The move sent a chilling message. The old ways were no longer guaranteed. Trust built over decades was suddenly fractured. Shock waves rippled through both countries, leaving everyone wondering what would come next. The Alaska Highway, once a symbol of unity, had come a flashpoint. The question now, could the damage be undone? Or was this start of a new era of uncertainty? From Victoria's perspective, the toll wasn't betrayal. It was about fairness and fiscal responsibility. Maintaining the BC section of the Alaska Highway is costly, battered by weather and heavy trucks. Officials argued Canadian taxpayers were subsidizing American commerce, as US fuel taxes didn't cover the real costs. The toll was framed as a fee, targeting commercial traffic, not tourists. BC claimed they'd raise concerns for years, but saw little action from US officials. Frustration grew, and the toll was a way to force the issue onto the agenda. They pointed out Canadian truckers face fees in the US. Why shouldn't Americans pay their share in Canada? For BC, it was about balancing the books and ascertaining provincial rights. The move was calculated, not hostile, a push for respect and recognition. But for Alaska, the explanation rang hollow. The toll was more than a budget fix. It was a blow to a vital connection. The stage was set for a showdown between ebbers. In Alaska, BC's arguments felt like cold bureaucracy, masking a deep betrayal. The Alaska Highway isn't just a road, it's Alaska's lifeline, built by the U.S. Army for the continent's stiffness. Alaskans believed the highway served special status, not a hefty fee. The toll felt like being charged rent for a room you helped build. Economic anxiety spiked. Alaska's high costs got higher, profit margins shrank, and some routes risked being cut off. Families worried about rising prices in isolation. The toll wasn't just an inconvenience. It threatened survival in a state already battling the elements. The move deepened Alaska's sense of vulnerability and abandonment. Anger floored at both British Columbia and Washington, D.C. for failing to protect Alaskan interests. The sense of partnership was shattered, replaced by fear and resentment. The highway, once a symbol of unity, now felt like a reminder of Alaska's isolation. The damage was emotional as much as economic. The question, could trust ever be restored? The toll's impact spread quickly, disrupting supply chains from Seattle to Anchorage. Washington state businesses lost Alaskan orders. Warehouses slowed, and the pain was felt in both sides of the border. The economic shock revealed just how interconnected the region truly was. Politically, the fallout was immediate. Alaska's congressional delegation condemned the toll, calling for retaliatory tariffs on Canadian goods. The dispute escalated to a national diplomatic incident, with the U.S. State Department lodging a formal protest. Ottawa was caught in the middle. Unable to overrule BC, but pressured by its most important ally. The friendly tone of U.S.-Canada relations gave way to confrontation and suspicion. Along the border, personal relationships suffered. Tourists and families felt the tension, and the easy camaraderie was replaced by awkwardness. The dispute wasn't just about money, it was about trust and identity. The damage to goodwill was real and much harder to repair than any road. The crisis had become personal for thousands of people. As tensions rose, truckers led slow-roll protests, blocking highways and demanding an end to the toll. It's their message. This way is about more than money. It was about friendship and cooperation. Behind these scenes, U.S. and Canadian officials scrambled to negotiate, seeking a way to de-escalate before a trade war erupted. Leaders from Alaska, Yukon, and Bic held virtual town halls, searching for compromise. Ideas emerged: a jointly funded infrastructure bank or a smaller negotiated fee. These leaders reminded everyone that the border was a zone of shared interest, not conflict. Ordinary citizens joined in, launching social media campaigns and pen pal programs to build goodwill. The grassroots response was a powerful reminder. The U.S.-Canada relationship is built on millions of personal connections. While politicians debated, people on the ground called for a return to trust and respect. The protests and conversations kept hope alive for a peaceful solution. The crisis had revealed the strength and fragility of cross-border ties. The next steps would determine whether the partnership could recover. The world was watching. The Alaska Highway. Toll crisis showed how quickly trust can unravel even between the closest neighbors. The need for resolution is urgent. Face-saving compromise is essential. A joint infrastructure fund could address BC's concerns while keeping the highway a pan and affordable. But rebuilding trust requires more than a deal. It demands real dialogue and mutual respect. Both sides must recognize each other's perspectives and the unique importance of the highway. Left unresolved, the dispute could poison other areas of us. Canada cooperation. The world looks to this partnership as amiable. Failure would send a troubling message. The future depends on leaders who will value long-term partnership over short-term politics, and on ordinary people who live the cross-border friendship of every day. The Alaska Highway was built as a bridge in crisis. Now it's time to rebuild the bridge of trust. The foundation is there. What happens next is up to both nations.